This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi, friends. I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. Today, I'm sticking with 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 30 and 31. And I'm sticking with really the sentence, those who honor me, I will honor. That's really what God is bringing to me in my heart. Those who honor me, I will honor. In my last episode, I discussed how Eli wasn't honoring God because he was letting his kids who were priests as well just run amok and do whatever it is they wanted to do. And I'm sure Eli and God had many chit chats about what his sons were doing. And just like us, we don't listen. Now I'm going to say I think Eli ignored God. He didn't want to listen. I think in most of our cases, we're unsure really of what's happening. Because just like I had those thoughts in my mind, God, you're really talking to me? You're really telling me? The creator of the universe is guiding me, is talking to me, but I don't think it was that way for Eli. I think Eli heard God and Eli couldn't muster up the courage to really set his boys down and say, we're not doing this. Eli couldn't face that his kids were treating what God entrusted to them this way. Kind of like maybe a little bit of embarrassment. We've all been embarrassed sometimes on how our kids behave, but sometimes our kids just need us to sit them down and tell them this is not what we're doing. Sometimes they don't know. I don't know if that was the case with Hophni and Phineas. I kind of think they already knew, but it was still Eli's job, one, as their father, and two, as the head priest, as the one God appointed. It was still his job and his responsibility to set them down and say, we're not doing this. I think he kind of had issues with, one, I don't want to deal with the kids. I don't want to deal with them. Two, I don't want to admit to the public what they're doing is wrong. And three, if I ignore it, maybe they'll just change on their own. And them changing on their own wasn't going to happen. It was not even God saying, Eli, you're not honoring me. It was God saying, Eli, you're not honoring yourself. You're not honoring all the work that you've put into it, all the leadership that you've shown. You're not even honoring yourself by correcting them. And then another thing, Eli wasn't even honoring his kids by stopping them. So there's so many things that are not being honored here. God, Eli, his kids, the people of Israel who trusted Eli, and now they felt led astray. They didn't feel safe. Even when people stepped in and even said it to Eli, like, hey, your boys are over here desecrating the holy space. You gonna do something? I could just see Eli going, I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm gonna come over there in a minute. And then him just hiding in a corner going, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And I'm sure God in those moments was like, hey, Eli, hey, Eli. And Eli just ignored. Eli said, no, thanks. Not listening. I don't hear anything. And Eli had a connection with God. They were talking. And Eli was not having any of it. It, it makes me laugh because God went to the point of having a strange physical man come to Eli and say, God said he needs to talk to you. Eli couldn't get away from God. It didn't matter. God was going to talk to Eli, and Eli was going to listen. Cracks me up when I think about it. When I think about those who honor me, I will honor. I think about all the years that I ignored God. Because again, there was nothing special about Eli. Yes, Eli was a priest, and yes, that was his job. So more than likely, maybe him and God talked a little more. He was God's COO of Israel. So maybe God needed to give a few more pointers to Eli. But there was nothing special about Eli. God doesn't just talk to priests. God doesn't just talk to ministers. God talks to everybody. The big question is, are we listening? Are we hearing? Do we even want to hear? Can we even slow down for 5 minutes to even hear what God is saying to us? I know for me in my past life, I couldn't slow down enough to even sit still to watch a TV show. How was I going to slow down enough to listen to God? My nervous system was a wreck. When I sat down to watch TV, I had to be doing many things while watching it because I couldn't just sit still. I couldn't just be. My nervous system was wound very tightly, and I didn't sit in silence. I didn't even sleep in silence. Even when I worked by myself in my home, I had my little TV on my desk going. I needed something going all the time. How was I going to hear God? I think about God sending that unknown man to give a message to Eli. And I realized even back then, when I couldn't slow down enough to hear, when I didn't think I was special enough to hear, God sent an unknown man to me. Now, it was a woman and she was known. I knew her, but God sent that person to me. I spent a lot of time when I was with the MRI company and I was a regional and a director of operations. I spent a lot of time in our Fort Worth, Texas center. I lived down the street from it, and it was our biggest performing center in the DFW area. And God didn't just send me one person. I'm going to talk about one in particular, but God didn't just send me one person. God sent me several in that center. In that particular center, it was one after the other. I didn't realize it because talking to God wasn't on my mind at that time. Proving myself was. Being the best was. Showing people that I mattered is what was on my mind. When I would go into this center and looking back, I realized most everyone in there had a connection with God. And they would talk to me about it, and I would move them to the side. I would let them speak. I would be polite, but I would specifically say, thank you, but no thank you. I appreciate it. There was even a minister's wife who I was very good friends with. I loved her husband. I loved this minister. He was one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And I was such good friends with her. And I loved that they didn't press me. Once I said it, they allowed me to be exactly who I was and loved me just as I was. But there was one person in particular that I became friends with and very close to. Her name was Nicole. And Nicole had medical issues. And had Nicole not shared these medical issues with you, you would probably never know, because that's how upbeat and loving she was. Now, Nicole had a little spice to her. She would let you know if you had said something or done something that she didn't really care for. But since I had spent a lot of time in that center, and she was at that time, the manager of that center, we spent a lot of time talking and interacting. And Nicole would talk about church. She would talk about her life. She would talk about God. And I gave her the same spiel that I gave everyone else. Thank you, but no thank you. I respect what you believe in, but I expect the same. God is not something that I really want to talk about, nor do I want to have in my life. And so never did she press me either. If we asked about each other's weekend, she would let me know she went to church. It was just surface as far as when it came to God or church or anything like that. Nicole worked with me for many, many years. I mean, we were entwined in each other's lives. And then she's one of the ones I had to come to and say, they're going to close the center, so you're not going to have a job. And it's starting tomorrow. And I think out of everyone in my life, she was probably one of my hardest ones, not just because we were closing the center and she wasn't going to have a job, but because I valued our relationship and I didn't know if it was going to be there. I valued seeing her a lot of my weeks and our interactions and the relationship we had. And I was unsure it was going to be there. I was unsure because in my past, if there wasn't a reason for someone to see me, or if I didn't provide anything, why would they want to be in my life? And I think that that is one of the things that really got me whenever I had to close that center, is I was unsure about this friendship that we had developed, if it was going to continue or if it was just going to go by the wayside. And especially after I had to let her go, because sometimes people don't see past what's right in front of them. But Nicole and I, we continued to be friends. We talked and texted all the time, and we tried to meet up a couple of times a month at one of our favorite Mexican restaurants. She has been a constant in my life and has taught me there's nothing that I have to provide for that reciprocal friendship. It just is. And that has meant so much to me over the years. There was a period in 2024 through 2025 that I stopped talking to a lot of people and I changed my phone number. It was how I needed to cope. And I think I didn't understand that then. It was how I needed to cope with my nervous system just being overwhelmed. My nervous system had said, I'm done. I'm finished. And so not having people in my life and being able just to concentrate on me. And I was also developing my relationship with God during this time. So I was healing my body, healing my spirit, understanding me, understanding God, just kind of doing a lot of healing in that time. And I was driving back from Houston and I thought of Nicole and I wanted to talk to her, give her my number, tell her what had been going on, kind of where I was at in my life. And she didn't answer. I left a message, never heard from her. And I was okay with that because I had made the decision to change my number and really just remove everyone from my life. When I started to call people back, it was going to be up to that person whether they wanted to accept me back into their life. Because me just disappearing, it did hurt people, and I know that. But unfortunately, for me to survive, it's what I had to do. I didn't understand that my nervous system was exhausted. I was exhausted. I was at the point of no return. I was in self-survival mode. And at that time, it was the only thing that I could do. And so when I started calling people back, I had to allow them the decision if they were going to allow me back into their life. And whatever they decided is what I had to go through and it's what I had to accept. And there were some people in my life that did not allow me back, and I'm okay with that decision. I wish them well. I carry love in my heart for them. I left this message and weeks went by and Nicole didn't call back. I was like, okay, God, that is a relationship that's not going to be able to go forward. I'm okay with that. And I went about my way. It was a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, and I was on my way to Houston again, and Nicole's name popped into my mind. And I was like, no, I've already left a message. She didn't call back. I'm not going to press her. I'm going to leave it right where it was at. And it just kept being heavy on my heart. I called and she answered the phone immediately. And I was like, Nicole, it's Carrie Joe. And she's like, oh my God, where have you been? What is going on? Well, I left you a message a couple of weeks ago. And she's like, I never check those. I never check my messages. Honestly, the only reason I picked up my phone was because I thought it was a doctor's office calling me back. And I've been waiting for this call. What is going on? I had to tell her some things that had been going on in my life. But the main thing that I wanted to tell her is I wanted to thank her for always telling her truth when it came to her relationship with God. Because what I didn't understand at the time is that even though I was not accepting of it, her telling her truth kind of just stayed in the back of my mind. And so when I think about this verse, I think about Nicole, those who honor me, I will honor. And she honored all the time her relationship with God. And she continued to honor that even when I said, I don't want to talk about it, but God was a part of her life. And so for her, she was going to talk about it, not in a pushy way, not in a superior way, just in a way of, this is what I did this weekend. This is part of my life. You asked me what I did. You asked me what I was going through. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to hide it because you don't like it. I wanted to let her know that some of those talks that we had resonated. And I wanted to also let her know that I also too was having an intimate relationship with God. A question that she asked me was how, why, what happened? And I had explained a few things to her that had been going on in my life. And then I explained how I had had an encounter with God. I had been in the presence of God. And we talked about that for a little bit. And she said, I have something I need to tell you. And I'm like, okay, what you got for me? Tell me. She said that years back, it had to have been in 2010, I think she said. So we're talking 15 years ago. She said she was sitting in church and her preacher had said, pick the one person you're going to pray for daily. Just the one person. And she was sitting in church and God gave her my name. And she even said, God, are you sure? You, Carrie Joe, like God, you know how she feels. She's been clear. And she said, God was very clear to her. Carrie Joe is your one person you're going to pray for. And I read this passage, those who honor me, I will honor. She could have said, no, no, thank you. Carrie Joe has already made it clear. But she said, okay, God, I'm going to pray for Carrie Joe every day. And she did. She said, we can go and pull out all my journals, and your name is in page after page, prayer after prayer. And she said, I'm amazed. I can't believe this. And so it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in weeks. It took years. But because she listened, those who honor me, I will honor. I was able to come back to her and say, this is what happened in my life. And then after she told me that story, I was able to say, thank you. Thank you for not just honoring God, but thank you for honoring me. Thank you for seeing something in me that I never saw. Thank you for listening to God, that I was important. And thank you for allowing God to work through you to help me. So God may not have sent me an unknown man, but God did send me a Nicole, because Nicole loved me as God would love me. Nicole didn't expect anything from me except a reciprocal friendship. And Nicole loves me just as I am. Nothing more, nothing less. And she showed that. Can you imagine if every single one of us loved each other like God loves us? God used this one person in my life to be an example of what God's love is all the time. And Nicole honored God and said, all right, God, if you say Carrie Joe, it's going to be Carrie Joe, and I'm going to pray for her daily. I want to make it clear she's already said where she stands, but I'm going to go with what you say. And this is not just about Nicole praying and me now having a relationship with God. That's not what all of this is about. This is about Nicole honoring God. And now it coming full circle and Nicole seeing what her honoring God produced. It's showing her, I heard you correctly. Because I think sometimes in our relationship with God, because God's not physically standing in front of us, we have to go on our intuition, our discernment, and how we are hearing God. And this for Nicole, now she had to wait a while for it. But this for Nicole was showing her that, yeah, I heard correctly and I honored God. And this is the full circle of it. And I don't know why God had me call Nicole and let her know what was going on in my life. Because I was heading somewhere, she was waiting on a call. We didn't even get to really what was going on in her life. Maybe at that moment, that's what she needed to know in her life that God was present and God was there. It doesn't matter what the outcome of it was for any of us. What matters is that when we honor God and when we do what God asks us to do, whether it sounds crazy or not, it's for a reason. Those who honor me, I will honor. And at that moment, Nicole was able to see that she honored God and she heard God correctly. And I don't know about anyone else, but for me, that means something. I'm not even the one that was praying for myself. Nicole was praying for me, but that meant something to me because she heard God. And it allowed me to know, okay, yes, we all can hear God, every single one of us. It's, are we listening? Are we stopping long enough to hear what God is saying? Are we taking off our mask and stopping our performance to hear what God is saying? And even if we think, God, are you sure? But we still do it anyway. That's honoring God. That's honoring ourselves. At that moment, Nicole honored God. She honored herself and she honored her friend. And to this day, we have a great friendship. We don't talk every day. We don't text every day. She is living her life. I'm living my life. But I always know that we have that connection and that God worked through her to start a relationship with me. And it took years. And she didn't even know what was going on. But you never know how God is using you in your life daily. You don't know how your actions can help or hinder someone else. You don't know everything that God has you doing and the purpose of it. But if you don't do it, what are you not honoring? Because it's not just about honoring God. It's about honoring what we're here to do. And here on this earth, we're here to help one another. This place is rough. There's a song, and in that song it says, Earth is ghetto, I want to leave. And I think about that. And this singer is not wrong because I think about all the selfishness, all the things that are going on. I watch people and I see how they just walk by a stranger who may be having a hard time and doesn't even stop to say, can I help you? And every time we do that, what are we honoring? What are we honoring? Because we're all out here just trying to make it. We're just trying to make it. And every day, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how many cars you have. I don't care if you live in the biggest house. You're trying to make it too. We all are trying to make it here. And wouldn't it be easier if we did it together? If we honored God by listening, if we honored each other by helping, and if we honored ourselves by removing our masks and our performance. I wonder if we honor all those things, what a different place this would be for all of us to live in.